Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I thought today we would do something a little bit different. I had this inspired idea for this really soft, dusty, boho style palette. And why not mix it together? So let's go through how I'm going to mix this up. I know it looks a little bit chaotic right now, but it'll all come together. And tips on how to make that dusty palette as opposed to a pastel palette. So let's get mixing. So when I started with this idea, I really wanted to work with more soft neutral colors as well as greens. Green isn't really a color that I tend to work with, so I really wanted to work in that range of colors as opposed to the blues that I'm used to. So what I actually did is I took the idea that was in my head that wasn't fully finished. I couldn't just grab my swatches and run with it. And I went to Pinterest. So I found a couple of photos that I really liked that were kind of in the realm that I was going for. I'm going to hopefully put it like here. Does that make sense? I'm still learning this whole thing. And I made a collage of the two of them. Sometimes you can find an image that is bang on to what you're looking for. Sometimes you'll find something that will blow your current idea right out of the water and you'll go in a completely different direction. But your inspiration can come from absolutely anywhere. It can be something that's in your home. It can be a photo you took, a photo you found, a random object, art that you found. Inspiration is absolutely everywhere. So back to this. And I took that and I pulled out my swatches, and of course getting the full range of Americana in Canada is problematic. So it is going to take me a little bit more work to get to a couple of the colors that I want because I don't have them, can't get them, yada yada. So I pulled out my swatches and I started pulling bottles that were as close to my inspiration photos as I could get, and sometimes pulling darker colors as well as some lighter colors to try. I think it was that one, it might have been this one, that I know that I'm going to have to mix in to the color that I'm working on to either lighten it or darken it. Now I'm going to have paint bottles everywhere. And then the other thing that I also did is I pulled out a couple of grays. Gray is going to be really important in creating that dusty palette. So far, I have no idea how many colors I'm going to end up with. I've got zero plan. I am just going to let this kind of evolve on its own. So I'm going to start with a couple of my lighter colors, starting in the tans, creams, white-ish. Start there, and then I'll just keep working through things. I do still have my swatches handy so that I can see them, so I'm hopefully not dumping out a whole lot of paint. And I do have my reference photo in front of me, and I have black paper to do some swatching. I do know that I'm going to be working on black bases for what I want to do. The other thing that I did, I couldn't find any wax paper, so I just pulled out a little zippy. I'm going to use that as a little bit of a palette. We'll kind of see how that goes. I do have just, a nail tool because my pots just keep falling over. I'm just going to be using the end of a wee cheap paintbrush to mix my paints. You can get great little silicone stir sticks. I'm not that fancy. So I am looking at my reference photo, and I pulled out both of these colors because I wasn't exactly sure which way I was going to go. Checking out my swatches, I think this is going to be a little bit too creamy for what I want. as opposed to the tan, but let's get some white going here first. So I tend to always overfill my cups. I do a lot of projects in the same palette and then I wash them out, but I do tend to overfill them, and then what ends up happening is I actually have to pull some of that paint out of the pot, so you're getting waste. So unless you know for a fact that you are going to use that particular paint color straight as is, no additions, no mediums, no mixing, no nothing, don't fill it all the way up to the top. All right, let's start here. So I know that this is going to be a really light color. I'm working with warm white right now. And I'm still kind of torn. So right now I am between bleached sand and oyster beige. Oyster beige is on the tan spectrum, bleached sand is on the creamy. We might end up going with both. Time will tell here in a minute. So I'm kind of trying to go for a little bit of an alabaster color. The faster you stir, the more air bubbles you're going to get. I'm not going to slowly do this. I'll probably have to speed up quite a bit here during the process. And by speed up, I do mean like change the speed on the video cuts. And then what I do every time that I mix a color, see, I'm glad I had that little thing there that would have just like fallen right over and I would have cried. Every time that I mix a color, I make a dot on my sheet. Now, I am going to tap some bubbles out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sit on that for a minute. I want to see how it's drying on my black base, because how it looks in the pot could be stunning and how it actually dries completely different. So we're going to do that. Next up is kind of like a soft shiitake mushroom type color, and I think what we're going to do, we might even mix in a little bit of that one. Sorry, I have a fuzzy little dog that would really like my attention right now. Her little foot is right here. She's trying very hard to get my attention. Darling, off. Nice. Thank you. All right, so before this disappears on me. Okay, so when you're looking for the lighter version, obviously don't start with your dark and then build up your lights. Try to work with your light and then deepen it as you go. You're going to be a lot happier in the long run. So I think that is Portobello. I quite like that. For some reason I thought that was the plum suede, and that's not the direction I want to go in with this one. So I'm quite liking this. So I'm going to do quite a bit of the oyster beige, and then I'm going to add in some, hopefully this bottle works. Pause. So when I do my initial swatches, normally these are wrapped, right? So I just take the lids off and I just do my swatch that way. I don't actually open them up. So it turns out that this one was actually kind of not formed properly in the little spout there. Now I may not be able to store this bottle upside down because I just shook it and it kind of exploded everywhere. But I think we've got it now. Obviously it's going to come out. So I'm going to start with just little bits and just keep adjusting one way or the other. It's actually really pretty. But it is more in the tan side. And I do want it to be a little bit on the gray side, but of course I was just working with 2 tan colors. So what we're going to have to do is pull out one of my grays. Now I've pulled out 2 grays, but obviously if I go with this one, it's going to be really cool. This one's going to be a little bit warmer. So now this is a darker color, so chances are I'm going to have to re-lighten this. I'm still pretty tan. And I do still want that tan hint. I want that warmer hint. I don't want it to be a complete gray. I just slowly adjust. I may end up doing some gradients within this, like 1 or 2. Now I'm going to show you my scrap pile here. So this was what I started with. Really tan. Look how that just kind of richened that up. Sometimes my scrap will actually give me a really good idea of what I'm doing and where I'm going. And other times I do have to wait for that to dry. So I do kind of like where that's going right now. So I'm just gonna lightly close these up for now while I keep working. So now I think I want to finish up all of my browns. Now I've got, I don't even know how to describe this color. So I think we might end up doing a little bit of a mix of all of these. It's not a black. I think it's probably a really dark chocolate. Ooh, actually, if I adjust on that, I don't really have dark browns. Again, brown is another color that I tend not to work with a whole lot. So I might be better off pulling this brown and working with that. All right, so I did pull out bittersweet chocolate. I am going to have to really dusty this up and lighten it up. So I've got just under half in there right now. what I'm going to do, I'm actually like really liking this brown. I don't know what's up with that, but I'm taking it and running with it. Oh, you know what happened? The little insert there, that's why this is going to be a problem bottle for sure. All right, so now I'm up to like 3/4 of the little pot right now. I think these are 3 ml pots, 6 in a strip. I do have to order more. I ended up getting some from like my local craft artisan store, and they were like really hard. Like there was zero flexibility to the pots themselves as well as the lids, and like with my RA, it was so hard to actually open them. And then I found that they were actually drying out really fast. So even though I was sealing them properly, somehow air was still getting in there. And my paints were drying up. So this is why I had zero plan. I'm actually really liking this color. And I think it's going to tie in really well with this one. So we're going to do a bit of a gradient. So I'm going to go back to my bittersweet. And I do want this to be darker, so I'm about half right now. And I'm going to add just a little bit of the Portobello. Sometimes having no plan works really, really well. I knew that I didn't want to have just 6 colors. I think I've got like 8 or maybe 9 colors on my inspiration photo. But like, look at how pretty that is. And not what I was going for at all. I'm going to darken this up a little bit. I've just squirreled. I had no idea what I was talking about, but yes, number of colors. I've kind of set myself up for the possibility of 12. I've got 2 strips sitting here. Like, that is really pretty. Okay. So again, we're going to sit on that. Tappy some bubbles out. Sit on that, see how it dries. Because I may have to dusky it up with some gray. And go back to my inspiration photo. So now we are into pinks. So this palette has cream, it has mauves, it's got a little bit of a dusty like plum, and it's got some green, blue greens. So now that we've started those, let's get into our pinks. Pull out warm white to work with. And then we also have our grays for dusking it up. So this is going to be a super pale mauve. So I've got 3/4 of my white. And I've got blush pink and French mauve. So I want to go a back to my swatches, blush pink and French mauve, because this is going to tell me really clearly my undertones. Do I actually want to go with the blush pink? It's got more of a baby undertone, where this is a little bit richer and warmer. I think this would end up being pastel-y on me, and that's not the way that I want to go. And based on the other colors that I have on my palette, I'm gonna end up doing a gradient in here. So I'm going to scrap my blush pink. I'm gonna take it completely off of my table so that I know that I haven't used it. I keep all of the paints that I'm using in this one palette on my table off to the side so that I can top up, I can touch up, I can adjust. I really should write them down on my swatches, but apparently I haven't been that smart as of yet. I just found an already open one of those, so I'm going to pull that out. Okay, so we know that we're going for the French mauve, and I know that this bottle sadly is quite thick, so I really have to shake it up. I may have to use a little bit of medium. It's likely just the specific bottle that I purchased. It's just a little bit off, and now of course I'm gonna have a ton of bubbles as well. Just want, so I want this to be super, yeah, see how thick it is? That's not standard for the Americana, so either it got frozen or it was just like super old. Maybe I could definitely do it, but usually if they're super old they'll just be separated and gross. So chances are it was just a frozen bottle that I ended up getting off of the shelf. So this is nice and light, however, it may not be light enough for what I'm going for, because I am doing more gradient. And I can already tell you, because it's going to dry darker than that, I'm going to have to lighten this up. So I'm going to fill this up the rest of the way with my warm white. I think I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 or 4 in this little gradient that I'm doing right here. And then my darker one that's going to tie in really nicely. I'm going to let that one sit. It may still be a little bit too dark. We shall see. And now we're going to do another one that's a little bit more pink. So I'm going to go about 3/4. And a little bit of a glob. Now, I did just see a dried chunk come off of that. So something that I always keep on my table is tweezers. Yeah, that's super yummy. I love that. Oh, now I've got paint on my fingers. Haha, imagine that. Okay. So now, because I took that out, I had based it on that. We shall see if I need more. I still want this to be really pale and soft. Is a little bit darker than the previous pot, so we'll give that a swatch. See how that goes. Sometimes the most subtle of differences in pot will actually be the biggest difference on paper. All right, so that's the first strip. Move on to the next one, put my little support in. So now we're going more mauve. So I'm gonna do the French mauve base. I'm gonna start on this side. No, I feel puppy feet again. And I'm going to add a little bit of white. So it's just reverse of what I just did in the previous two pots. And I can't tell you that it's going to be half and half or a quarter. It's all about playing with it, playing with color theory, playing with proportions, playing with testing. If I'm doing a full 6-strip gradient, it can be actually quite a bit easier. I think that's going to be too dark. I want a little bit lighter, because you can do like straight color on each end and then more and less of each working inwards into the center of your strip. But then depending on your base color, some of them can change really quickly, some of them less so, some of them will alter drastically depending on the color that you're actually mixing it with. So you do kind of have to adjust color by color. Okay. That is still really pink. I'm going, of course, I've got too much paint in here, which is very typical of me. Do as I say, not as I do. What I'm going to do, I'm going to add more white, and I'm finding it not very dusty. So I'm going to pull out my slate gray, and I'm just barely going to put that in there. Working with white will get you pastel-y. If you mix with gray as your white, you will get these beautiful dusty tones. They're so pretty. Again, you do have to test it. You do have to try it. I've done straight mixes with gray as my white, and it has gone very, very poorly. I think I had to wash out an entire paint strip because I wasn't playing. I just went at it like I normally would with a white, and it was very sad. It was very sad. There we go. So we're definitely getting lighter. It's a little bit more dusty. Definitely in the realm that I want to go. I think I'm going to sit on that one for a few minutes. I really find sitting on the colors, waiting for them to dry up a bit, makes a difference. If you look at these browns right here, when they were wet, they were stunning side by side. Now I can tell I really want to adjust them. Tap out some bubbles. Okay, so there's that one. Now, on my inspiration photo, there is another yeah, you know what? Let's do that. So I've still got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 for sure that I want to do. Now there's nothing saying that I can't open up another strip and add in another pot. I've got 4 for sure that I want to add. And I'm kind of looking at this dusty mauve, but it's got a tan, a brown tan edge to it. I'm not going to say undertone, but it is more of an edge. I think it might actually be really pretty. So let us do that. So it does have, and I really like this portobello. So let's do it. Let's go for it. So I'm gonna do, it'll actually come out here. Okay, and since I know I'm gonna have to add more colors, I only did about half in that one. I'm gonna add a little bit of white. I still want to go into the realm of that dusty side that I just got with the last one. So I'm going to put that in there, but I'm also going to throw some of that in there. Cross your fingers. Sometimes you just throw paints in a pot and see what happens. Who knows, I might even like this better than the color that I just mixed, and it might give me ideas for the rest of the gradient. About to find out. That's actually really pretty. I'm liking that. So I'm gonna add a little bit more pink. Maybe a little bit more, because I do plan to make a few different projects out of this palette. And I hate having to stop and mix part way through, or let's say I run out and then I can't get it mixed identical to the way it was before. Maybe this is why I have to dump out half of my pot sometimes, because I mix too much. Okay, this portobello may actually be one of my new favorite colors. And I cannot believe that I'm saying that. It's working really well. I really like the soft side that I'm getting to it. So maybe what I'll actually end up doing is like swapping these two just kind of in my lineup. But then also what I might do is go back to this previous one. And see if using the Portobello actually duskies it up a little bit more and ties it in a little bit better with this one, the second one that I just made. Yeah, I'm really liking that. Oh, see, you just have to play with it and have fun with it because you never know what's gonna happen. Like, I was not expecting to like that color so much, nor for it to do what it's actually been doing for me. Just fabulous. Okay. Now wake up my inspiration photo. Okay, so I'm not gonna need this. Now I'm going for my darkest purple. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with these three, and especially if this is working really well, sorry, I'm gonna start with these three. If the Portobello is working really well to give me that dusty side that I'm looking for, I may not even need to use one of my grays to get the color that I'm looking for. So I did pull out Poetic Plum just for like a teensy little bit that I might need to get that rich depth into the color. But I think as a starting point, if I use Plum Suede, and again, a puppy, I'm so sorry. If I use this as my starting point, let's pull out my swatches here. Go, I am looking at them, I promise. Poetic Plum. Yeah, I think this will actually work really well. Oh, that's my Poetic Plum. I want Plum Suede. Change of plans. Plum Suede. Oh, there we go. So, whoop. Okay, so the Plum Suede and the Poetic Plum looks totally different on camera, of course, but I think this will work really nicely as a base. Never used it before. I am going to put quite a bit in my pot. It's kind of thick. And then just like a drop. If I just work drop by drop, these both really had the same undertone. They look really pretty next to each other, very similar. They complement each other as swatches. So it's easy to just work them in the same realm. I don't really have to work them together. Okay, I'm gonna have to use a little bit more because that did not darken as quickly as I thought it would. And the Plum Suede is actually a lot thicker than I thought it was. Hopefully I won't need to add any medium. See. So if we're ever talking about paint consistency, which I know is something that I've been meaning to do, see how thick that is. It's not pooling nicely. It's not dripping back into the pot. This is too thick. It's workable. It's absolutely workable. But if you're a starter, if you don't want to have to fight with the paint, if you don't have to work the paint and work the dots, then it's going to be too thick. Now, that's actually a really pretty color. I am just going to put a dot on my paper. I'm also going to pull out a decent amount from this pot because it's so thick and because it's not changing. I think I'm going to have to mix it more than expected. It's actually really pretty on paper. It's actually really pretty on paper. I quite like that. So again, change of plans. I'm gonna go half of that. Make sure I'm grabbing the right bottle. I'm actually gonna shake this up, see if that helps me any. My luck, it won't. And so this is basically just the reverse of what I just did. Well, that was definitely what I was going for in the first place, but beautiful mistakes can happen. And sometimes it just works out for the better. Like, that is entirely what I was looking for in the first place. Okay, I am going to want more in my pot. So I'm just going to top it up. Oh, that is gorgeous. Oh, that's so pretty. Oh, that is so, so pretty. I'm not even going to need to use the portobello. That is a gorgeous. And like, look at it on my paper towel. It's this one right here. Hopefully you can see that properly because it's actually really pretty. Okay. Tap, 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 tap. Let things dry. Now I did leave this one over here. I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to use it yet or not, but let us move these out of the way because now we are on to the greens. All right, so I've pulled out all of my greens. I've left out my white as well as my neutral gray and the lovely portobello. Now I was looking at my swatches and these two colors are actually really, really similar to the ones that are on my inspiration photo. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with them straight up and I may use them in the end straight up. So I'm going to, I know, I'm filling my pots. They're such pretty colors on their own. I'm getting kind of boxed in here. And doing straight swatches next to my working palette also helps tell me if that's exactly what I want to do or not. Really helps for me to adjust. It may not be dusty enough. So I've got Thicket. It's kind of dusty on its own, and Blue Mist, also pretty dusky on its own. So we'll see. So I'm gonna let those dry. Now I do have another one on the inspiration photo. And I don't always like to work in even numbers. Odd numbers always works better. And by that, I'm talking about the variations within my palette. So if I'm just doing 2, 2, 2, and 2, it's not going to look the same or as pleasing as if I'm working with 3s. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out another pot. So this is just completely a little bit of a side note. So yes, I washed these. I soaked them in hot water and Dawn dish soap, and they just didn't get scrubbed clean. I could have soaked them again, but I just got too lazy. So what little tricky trick, Q-tips, isopropyl alcohol, basically like alcohol. Not the fun kind, the cleaning kind. And you're just going to swipe inside your pot, and it's going to lift off all of those little bits. Okay, so this one is going to be more on the green side, whereas the last two were on the blue spectrum, which of course is not what I was going for when I started all of this, but once I came across the inspiration photos and I collaborated them together, it was just 100% what I wanted to do. So I've narrowed things down to Desert Cactus and Avocado as my base. I think Desert Cactus as my primary color, Avocado for a little bit of depth, and then I do still have Sea Glass out here, depending if I need to lighten it without getting into my warm white. I do still have my Portobello here, and I've also kept Blue Mist and Thicket here just in case I need to give it a little bit more of that blue edge. So, and as you can see, this came out clean. The caps not so much, but generally I don't find that to be an issue. So I'm gonna do about 75. And you know, honestly, you know what? I knew that there was a reason why I had pulled out this little baggie. Instead of wasting mixing in my pot and pulling and all that kind of stuff, I want to try. Now I can just do a couple of little dollops and do that and that, and now remember when I said sometimes it can kind of surprise you how it changes and alters. You're not really sure which way a color is going to pull or how drastically it's going to change. And that's the last thing that I want to do with this, because I've been doing so well. I pulled in too much of the avocado. So right now what I'm doing is I want to figure out which way I want my base to go. Whether I deepen it with the avocado and go more of that green edge, or if I go with the thicket to give it a little bit more of that blue edge. So, moment of truth. Sorry, I have an itch. If I keep looking at my inspiration photo, I'm really, really glad that I did this. So the avocado is going really green, and I can kind of put it. Oh, this is genius. Why have I not done this before? I can put the two colors next to everything that's on my swatch sheet, and I can see that using the avocado is just going to go really, really poorly. So I am removing the avocado and the sea glass from my table. I'm not going to need them. Okay, so let's move this out of the way before I stick my arm in it and just get paint everywhere. So I added too much thicket in my little mixy. So I'm just gonna do a wee bit. Start there, and then I think what I'm going to do is add portobello. Start here and see where we're at. It's a really pretty color. Really, really pretty color. So I definitely need a little bit more depth. So we're gonna add in a little bit more thicket and a little bit of dust. So we're gonna go with just a little bit of the portobello. Bit by bit. Mixy. Do a drop, do a mix, do a dot. Oh, this is super pretty. And you know what I could actually do if I cleaned out the rest of these pots? Well, obviously not that one, because I highly doubt that I still have a lid for it. But what I could do is I could do a gradient based on this, and I could remove these two more blue-based ones, and it would actually work really nicely with the rest of the palette. Again, ideas. The most colors I've ever done on a piece have been 12 plus a oh my goodness, what's the word? Metallic. There we go. So sorry, I squirreled. Well, I didn't really squirrel, I just more had a bit of a brain fart. So right now we're already at 13. And I am going to have to decide on a metallic, because I have to add in some sort of metallic. Something soft, definitely not silver, definitely not like a bright Venetian gold or something like that. Oh, that's really pretty. It's definitely not close to my inspiration photo. I think I'm getting too much portobello in here, so I'm going to add a little bit more thicket. I'm actually really surprised how well the desert cactus and thicket are complementing each other. They are both on the cooler end of the spectrum. If you're new to color theory, paint mixing, art, anything like that, definitely familiarize yourself with warm and cool tones. It will really help. And you can find the really cheap color wheels. Those will also help. Okay. I think still not where I want to be. I still want to stay in this green zone, but it's not what I want. So I'm gonna get a little cray-cray. So I do want to darken it up a little bit, but I still want it to stay dusty. I don't want to add in the avocado. Is it really pulled more warm green than I wanted? Just doing tiny. Oh, that might have done it. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to sit on that for a little bit. It's really pretty in the pot. Again, I still want to make sure that it's working with the rest of my palette. I did see a drop here. There we go. I'm going to have to clean up that bottle. Okay, so while that one is drying, what I'm going to do is I'm back to the start of my palette. And I'm going to start back here. And I can already tell that these are too stark in contrast. I do want to connect them more. I want them to flow better. This is still a little bit too dark, so I'm going to have to lighten that. There's very little variation between these two, so I'm going to have to adjust those. I'm really liking this color, and it's actually going to tie in really pretty with this one, so I think I will actually keep it in. I'll see where I can kind of place that in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start back at the beginning. I'm going to make slight adjustments, and then I'm going to work my way through the entire palette, just making slight adjustments, as I just said. Apparently I'm having a moment. So I'm going to hush. I'm going to speed this along, and we'll talk in a little bit. So since this video was already so long, I did continue to mix off camera. Sorry, kids are getting hungry. I'm trying to get this done. So they are still a little bit wet, but as you can see, I just slightly made slight variations to each of them. I did end up pulling this avocado green into my blues, and I really think it made a difference. It kind of tied everything in together, and it brought me back to my original thought of going with those greens. So right now, this is my finished palette. We'll see if I make any adjustments to it in the morning when I start to play with it. But I think this is really pretty. Really, really pretty. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know that it was a lot, but I also hope that it had some nice tips and tricks for you. So if you did like my video, please a thumbs up, comment, share. They go a long way and really appreciate them, as well as you joining me for this video and this process. And as always, hitting that subscribe button would be fantastic, greatly appreciated. Thanks again, and we'll see you all in the next one.